Hello, and welcome to Pillar Talk with Rochelle. I am your host, Rochelle Armstrong, and during each episode, we're going to have different guests from different professions, different backgrounds, with different experiences, and they're going to pick one of the 12 pillars from my book, Simply Complex, Leading Out of Authenticity. And what they're going to do on each episode is just talk to us about how that pillar has shaped them negatively and positively. So today on the podcast, we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Veronica Cargill. Hello, Miss B.
Hey,
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How
You
you
look
doing?
great. You
Thank
doing
you.
good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I feel good. You ready for this interview, lady?
Ooh, I think so.
I think you are. So why don't you just tell our guests a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, first, I was born and raised in West Palm Beach, Florida. I was raised by both parents, my mother and my father,
Okay.
and we was stayed like I guess we'd call it the suburbs,
Okay.
the suburbs. And growing up as a child, um, I kind of felt different than the other kids on my street.
Speak
And
on.
because I didn't know where to fit in at. Because back, you got to understand, when I was growing up, I was born in 1959. So I was back there with some of the racism
Mm,
that's going on.
okay.
So, and then also, I was growing up during a time where Black folks didn't want you to have much.
Mm. So let me pause you for one moment for our listeners. We're talking about environment.
Right.
And so when I asked how she's doing today, she just jumped right in. And I love it because that means you're ready. And so I want you to speak on that a little more. When you said Black people didn't want to see other Black people do well,
Right.
do share.
Okay. So when I say that, I was privileged to have my father owning his own business.
Okay.
Okay, so he was in the military. After he went out the military, he owned the business, his own business. And then on the other hand, I was privileged with a mother who parents owned their own farm.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had two things going on at that point. So we lacked for nothing.
Mm. Okay.
So we had, and not only we had like cousins that were not like I want to say jealous, but like made us feel like we shouldn't be proud of what my parents was doing,
I see what you're saying.
you know. So, and I don't know, then as a child, and I just felt that. So as a child, I was so busy trying to be accepted by my own people
Mm.
because now I couldn't have white friends because there was already, the racism going on. So like I'm like, okay, who
Mhm.
gonna be my friends? So coming up, I didn't have a whole lot of friends.
Well, let's get into your story a little more. You're on the podcast, so you know I'm a little curious. Some might say nosy, right? You know me.
Right.
So there's no shame in that, first of all. You know, I was talking to someone one day and they were talking about, I guess I don't have a strong testimony or a strong story to tell because we grew up privileged or we grew up, in a decent home. And what I encouraged her, and I'm going to encourage you, that is definitely something to be proud of. And it should be celebrated. I think some of our stories, we wish we didn't have that story to share. And so I am honored to have you on the podcast and that you're here sharing a different perspective. I want our listeners to hear other sides of people's world because everybody who's Black didn't have it hard, didn't struggle, didn't come from poverty. And just like everyone who's white didn't come from money. or from privilege. And so I know race is always a big topic, and we're definitely going to dig a little deeper into your story and hear what that experience is like. But I just want you to be proud of who you are and where you came from. And so when I heard you say your father, he owned his own business, right?
Mhm.
What type of business did he own?
Seafood. He,
Seafood.
yes.
Now, was he like, did he own the building but had like a chef work for him and managers, or did he
No,
work
he
there?
sell fresh fish, crabs, shrimp, lobsters, you name it. Any type of fish you want, he sold it fresh.
Nice, nice. And then as far as your mom, just so I'm clear, I was taking notes when you were speaking. I heard you say that you all owned a farm. Did you say your mom's father?
Mother and father, they own a farm in Marianna, Florida.
Wow.
So and so it was like four boys and two girls. So and my mom was the youngest girl. So but being in the farm, they knew her parents knew they wanted her to be better, do better.
Mhm. Sure.
So they sent her to West Palm Beach to live with one of the older siblings to take care of her so that she could go to college and do all those things.
I love it.
Yes. So, and then I guess that's when she met my father, when they sent her from the country to the city to make a life for herself.
How wonderful and amazing of her parents. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about how they parent you. And I know that you have siblings as well. And so you talked about you all lived in the suburbs. So I'm assuming that's where you lived at from birth.
Yes, that's all I know.
That's okay. So you said you were born in 1959, correct?
Correct.
That's even prior to the civil rights movement. And you already admitted that racism was very prevalent then.
Right.
What was that experience like living in the suburbs? Meaning, were there other Black families in that particular neighborhood, or were you in a predominantly white neighborhood?
It was just so weird how this was set up. On the street I lived on, they were all well-off Black folks,
Hmm.
nice homes and all that. Then if you went back, like the next street over, you saw something different. So, and I wanted so much to be like the next street over
Oh, tell me a little more about the next street over then.
because they didn't have much. And so nobody didn't look at them as to what they had.
Oh, all same zip code? Because we judge people and we stereotype by
It
zip
was just,
code.
it's almost like you in one section, you cross the railroad track, you're in this whole different thing where you was on one street, and when you went
Yes.
to the next, the street behind us, it looked totally different.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to your street for a moment, and then we'll go back to the next street. So, if the street that you lived on had predominantly Black families, what was it about the other kids, assuming other kids were in that neighborhood, that made you feel like you did not fit in?
Because the kids on the streets over, a couple of streets over,
Hmm.
as kids, you kind of gather to play, to want to play. And then you hear them say, we don't want to play with them kids on 6th Street.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, why are you zeroing out 6th Street, But and 6th Street, everybody was, how you want to say it, Prissy, or, we played, but we didn't play hard.
Now you got to help me to stay with the story. So, when you say 6th Street, is that the street that you live on, or the
Right.
street over, the street
The
you
street,
lived on?
the street I lived on was
So
6th Street.
nobody wanted to play with you all on 6th Street.
Right.
Because now I'm not going to put words into your mouth. Now, what kind of kids lived on 6th Street?
The Prissy kids.
The Prissy kids.
Privileged
Okay.
kids lived on 6th Street.
Okay. But so why didn't you all play with each other?
We only played with the kids on 6th Street. I'm serious, on our street.
So you
That's
all only played with the kids on your own street. Okay, so help me to understand. Go ahead.
Okay. On our, and then at the very corner end of our street, there this we had a sand hill, one number sand. Nobody was
Okay.
there. And that's where kids are gathered to play kickball, all
Right.
that. So when we get to that sand hill, the other kids from the other area be on that stand here. And when we come, nobody didn't want to play with us.
Because you all were prissy, right?
Right.
But you wanted to play with the other kids.
Right. So I'm like, so me, I'm looking at it like, okay, wait a minute. Why y'all judging me?
Mm.
You're judging me for something that I have no control of.
Mm-hmm.
Go be mad at my mom and my daddy, not me.
So do you think, and we're going to make speculation here because I don't know if you know, but again, I'm curious. So do you think maybe their parents told them that, because kids are innocent. Like I feel like they're either raised, trained, or persuaded at that age. And what age was that, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, that was from, ooh, like kindergarten all the way up until we moved.
Wow. So kind of going back to my question, and I was making an assumption that you were that young. So do you think maybe they were told that they couldn't play with the kids on 6th Street?
I don't think so. I don't know. You know, we as kids, we look at stuff through a different lens. And really,
Right.
nobody don't have to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I saw the kids, the streets, but over from us, I was like, look what they doing. Their mama letting them do this. Their mom, they could do this. I'm looking at all those things.
Yes.
So then I guess through the lens of their eyes, because I got this slack when I was in school, because I would hear the whispering when I was in school. Look how she dressed, and stuff like that. Look how much lunch money she had, you know. So kids could tell then when
Oh,
you
yes.
right.
Agreed. So let me ask you a little more about your parents. Did your parents ever say that you couldn't play with those kids over on that street?
Never,
Okay. So
never.
you were allowed to play with
I
them.
was allowed to play with anybody.
Okay.
It's just that the other kids just wasn't, and it wasn't, just wasn't accepted than the kids on 6th Street.
Hmm.
On this, and I mean, it's a long street, and it wasn't much nice homes on that street.
Mm.
Then another street on the other side, nice. But when I say the street behind us, it's a couple of streets back. It
Right.
wasn't right directly behind us. But those were some of the kids I went to school with.
Of course. So you wanted to play with them. It's only natural.
Right.
Okay.
They wasn't trying to play with us.
And you said that was kindergarten through graduation.
Yeah. Well, by the time I got to graduate to high school, my mom done moved. And in the area they moved in, then it was predominantly white.
Okay.
So once they moved to that area, I pretty much just hung out with my immediate family because I was tired at that point of
Mm,
trying to fit in somewhere.
sure. I get it.
So it was just hanging out at my grandmama's, my mother's, my dad, mother, hanging out with my cousins, I just started doing stuff with cousins. So by the time I get to high school, I could count the friends I had because it was just too much work
Mm.
to
All
even
right.
make friends.
Well, tell me a little more about the new neighborhood. I understand it was predominantly white. We're looking at maybe 18 to 20 years later, because at this point you're in high school, right?
Right.
Maybe headed to college.
And right. And so then the school, because through elementary, it was I was mostly around black kids going to
Okay.
school, all black. When I got to high school and where my mama moved to, then it changed. It was predominantly white school.
Were you accepted there?
Not so much. She was trying to, I think it was just a little too late for me. My brother and my sister adjusted. My oldest brother and my oldest sister dressed just well, but me and my baby sister didn't. I, that's just my opinion. I just think it was just too late for us to adjust.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
what we had to deal with as kids. But my older brothers and sisters adjusted well. Whereas
Okay.
then we went into an environment where people started looking like us.
Okay.
The school we went to, they was looking like us, had what we had, black and white.
So on a class level, socioeconomic,
Right,
now everybody's on the same playing field.
right.
So,
But
so
but still, I still felt out of place
mm,
because I truly wanted to be accepted by the other.
mhm, I hear you. I got to pause for a moment, and it's not often that I pause, but I do process. And so, as I'm just thinking about that experience, how tragic that is. And I use that word intentionally because from you experiencing the rejection over that time period from kindergarten to basically up to high school, being rejected, clearly not from all Black people, because the ones on Sixth Street in your personal block neighborhood you could play with,
Right.
but from the rejection of the kids over the next street, I'm assuming the same thing happened at school. When you did come of age and now you're in high school and you're with people of your same class, same background, you just kind of withdrew and didn't want to associate with anybody.
Pretty much. And like I said, I had maybe one or two friends when I was in high school. And like I said, at that point, I was just spending the majority of my time with my grandmother and my cousins then.
I want to know a little more about needing that acceptance, only because it wasn't that you didn't have friends, but what was it about them that you wanted to be a part of that group of people so bad?
But I guess it was different because sometimes I felt growing up, I wish I didn't have what I had.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Because it just made you so different.
yeah,
And then it didn't help when my father was well known because of his business.
right. I hate this. And I know you're telling the truth. So as I'm looking perplexed or as I'm having to process this, it's not because I don't believe it. I know that it happens. I don't know if I hear this enough from people that I know personally. Like,
Because I try not to talk about it
right.
because let me just say this, once I did, and they was like, what you complaining about, Veronica? Y'all was rich. I'm like, no, that's not rich. What, you know, I don't understand what people mean by rich
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't see us as rich.
Because it was normal to you. It was your norm.
Right. So that one rich. Now, what I saw the white people, that's rich. Do you,
Okay.
you get what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
I hear
I
you.
didn't make a connection for us as being rich.
Okay. But to them, if you're poor, to them, you're rich. So it
Right.
made you regret what you had because you were judged for having what you had.
What I had. So then I know there's plenty of time, with my dad having own business, it wasn't where you be sitting around the cafeteria talking, you pull out your lunch money. They said, why you got all that money? Not knowing, I said, well, my daddy got a cash box and we just go in there and get our money and go on.
Right. That was your norm.
But see, but see, as a kid, I thought that's what everybody did.
Of course you would. I get
Go
it.
in the cash box, get your money and keep it moving. As a kid, that's what I thought everybody did.
Mm-hmm. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
All right. Let me bring you back. Let me bring you back to high school. Okay. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so now you're in high school. You're primarily just hanging out with grandparents, immediate family. In high school, you have one or two friends. Now it's time to go off to college. Where did you go to school at?
Virginia State University.
So you moved away from home. You're in Virginia now. You have
I,
family in Virginia?
nope,
Okay, you a big girl.
big girl.
You go off to college.
And when I went to college, I said, I ain't gonna let nobody know what my daddy or my mama have
You
because
talk about impact.
I wanted them to know me for me.
Okay.
So even though, even though when I was in college, my mom had my little account, money, dad had money going to the account, so I didn't have an issue with money. But I let on to other kids that was in college oh man, we got to eat these hot dogs. Yeah, that's why we got to eat is hot dogs. 'Cause
Mm,
we could have eaten something other than hot dogs, but I felt that if I would have told them, because of what I experienced, I didn't want to carry that to college. I wanted them to see me for me, not for what I have.
mhm. So what I'm hearing, and I'm saying this respectfully, it sounds like rich people's problems. And what I mean by that is before this interview, the only people that I've heard kind of talk about what you're explaining right here are like celebrities. Or, you would be watching a television show, or I listen to different interviews, and male or female will say, I don't let the person I'm dating know my background or where I come from or how much money I make because I want them to just like me for me.
Exactly.
But I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing that, but I'm also hearing shame of where you came from because you also wanted to fit in because of how you were ostracized, for lack of a better word, in your younger years. Part of you not sharing was to protect you. Is that correct?
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. So if they ate hot dogs, I didn't have to eat hot dogs. I could have went to McDonald's, Burger King, or wherever. They ate hot dogs, I ate hot dogs. They ate ramen noodles. I'm like, I can't do that one. I just
No. That is hilarious. You
because
couldn't do
we
you couldn't
never
do
had ramen noodles. And then when I tasted them for the first time, I'm like, oh, so I could never get to the ramen noodles. But I ate some hot dogs. You hear me?
eat a lot of all that processed meat, fooling with people.
People
Oh my.
that did not have the money, because I'd be like, Lord, I wish we could go to church chicken. You know what I mean? But
Yes, that sounds good right now, actually. Hmm.
I was like, Lord, I wish we could go to church chicken. But if they didn't have money, the money to do it, then guess what? Whatever it took for me to be, and nobody wasn't questioning me
Hmm.
about what I had. And it's like, even when we went to the mall, go shopping and stuff, I had the money. And I'm like, oh, I got to wait. I got to call my mom and see. You know what I mean? And I
You
did
played
not.
it off.
Yes.
Environment has done a number on you. And so, well, one thing I'm going to say, everybody knows college students are broke. So I'm thinking, you're away at college, and what I was going to ask, and so I thought about, I'm like, well, most college students are broke, but no one else within the circle that you were in had parents like yours, or either jobs where they had money to get some church's chicken at least.
No, even my best friend roommate. And that's the only person was my roommate that I opened up to her.
I was going to ask that. Let's talk about that a little more. So you did open up to someone
I opened up to her, and you gotta understand too. My mom had 4 kids, 3 kids in college at the same time.
at the same
At
time.
the same time, but at different coming out at different times.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so then by we freshman year, then she said, why don't you want to move out the dorm? And I had already been asking, Mommy, like, can I move out the dorm? She said, right. So she said, well, let me see. Then her and my dad came down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they looked for me a place to stay and everything. And then I said, I don't know, Pat. I don't know if my mom gonna go afford that.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Yes.
So then they came down and she got to meet my parents and everything. And then so I said, Patty, guess what? My mom and them said yes. What did your mama say? Did you ask your
Mhm.
mama yet? You see what I'm saying? And
Yes.
she said, well, my mama said yes, but I had to have a roommate. I
Okay.
said, well, we can be roommates. Just tell them me and you gonna be roommates.
Mm-hmm.
So they hear me and understand my mom was more of the straight and narrow,
Okay.
straight.
Give us a little. I think I know what you mean by straight and narrow, but give us a little more description about her for our listeners.
She was, if I asked for something, I had to hear this lecture.
Mm-hmm.
I got a whole lecture. And then I had to tell her how I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. and the whole 9 yards.
So it wasn't
And go,
easy asking for
mm,
anything, money.
mm, mm.
Okay.
So for something that I'm getting ready to help somebody else with,
Hmm.
I go to my father.
Oh, you
So
a daddy's girl. Was you a daddy's girl?
I was a daddy's girl. You know what? And I know it's changing the subject, but even when I had my son Charleston,
Hmm.
and I was living out in Colorado, and then I was like, Daddy, I need a car. What, Ronnie girl? Yeah, Dad, I need a car. That bus ain't working for me. So he shipped a
Oh,
car to me. He bought it and shipped it.
so
He said, what
sweet.
kind? Whatever you get, Dad, I'm good. So he bought it and shipped it up to Colorado. So, and when I had Charleston, I just assumed my mom was going to be the one that was going to come and help me and get me all set up. My dad and my sister, my oldest
So
sister, was the
sweet.
one that come. So my dad was my confidant, my everything. And when he passed, I'm telling you, my whole world shattered
Mm.
because it was so easy to talk to him, so easy. So going back, so when it was time to get her in this thing, I knew how much money she could spend.
You knew how much money Patty, is that your roommate's name? Was that her name, Patty?
Uh,
How did you know how
I
much money Patty could spend?
She told me what she could do.
Okay. Okay. I'm
So
with
I'm
you.
like, and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking to myself, that ain't enough. And my mom ain't gonna go for that.
Because you had to explain, you had to break it down for your mom to be
Right,
able to move out with Patty. She wanted to know how much was Patty gonna be able to
to
come
do.
up with. Okay.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So then I'm like, when she told me, I'm like, oh, Patty, I can't go to my mama with this.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, what we gonna do? I said, that's all your mama could do, your mom and dad, because she had both parents.
Uh-huh.
He said, yes. So I'm like, oh God. But we both wanted to move off campus.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to my dad. I said, Daddy, can I talk to you about something? He said, yeah. I said, if I tell you this, please don't tell mama. He said, you know you can trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, Daddy. So I told him the situation. He said, I got you.
That's beautiful. I like that.
And yes. So then at that point, I said, and I went to Patty. I said, girl, you good. She said, you for real? I said, yeah. So what about the lack of? I said, my daddy gonna make it up for
Mm.
you.
And your mother never found out about it
Girl, no,
to
because
this day, because
she
your
would.
mom's still living. So she didn't know your daddy was paying the difference.
Because she would have hit the fan,
You two are
and
good.
she would have been there.
Okay.
And then, yeah, she would have been there, and it would have been a big mess. And I just didn't want to get embarrassed in front of her.
Right.
Because see, my mama, she was one of them parents, she didn't care. Sometimes she could be embarrassing.
I
So
understand.
if she
Mhm.
came, Patty would have got chewed out.
Patty, and it's not even Patty's fault that she couldn't come up with all the money, but
Right.
your mama didn't care. Because
No,
you sold her a dream that you and Patty could make it. Okay.
right.
All right, so let's talk a
So
little more. No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I want to
so
hear.
so when my dad made that sacrifice, then I knew I had to make a sacrifice. So which means that's why I ate the hot dogs. Then he said, Ronnie, you want a car wash? I don't, Daddy, you doing too much right now. And if mommy ever found out, I would be in deep, deep trouble.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
I hope she never hears this interview. We
Oh, I doubt it.
I'm
She
joking. But I get people on here, you get to opening up, and then you're thinking, oh, our family members, but we're not going to worry about that because we're just being authentic and we're sharing a real story. So thank you for sharing this story. Finish.
So, but yeah, so then, we lived happily ever after when we was in college, but I said, that's why I ate the hot dogs, because I tried to, what my mama sent me, I just wanted to sit there just in case
Mhm.
that was an emergency. And I knew my dad was already doing more than what he should have been doing.
Okay. That's
So it
sweet.
was, and Patty knew, because we had the conversation. And she said, man, I didn't know you had it like that. I said, yeah. I said, but you know what? I don't tell people because people look at me differently.
You had already experienced that.
Right. And I didn't want to experience that anymore. I said, so could you please just keep that between us?
Did she?
Hmm.
So it sounds like when you got to college, did you intentionally seek out the type of people that you couldn't
Yes, I
hang out with?
did. Yes, I
Yeah,
did. Yes, I
I'm
did.
hearing that.
And so which means sometimes you use what you have for acceptance, if you understand
Hmm.
what I'm
I
saying.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Hmm.
And then people tend to take advantage of that.
Hmm. Yeah. That's
So
real
then,
talk.
right. So then as I was going through all this, I'm like, oh Lord, I got to be more careful now
Hmm.
because everybody is not your friend
That's right.
and everybody. And so I'm like, okay, I can't buy friendship.
You can.
This is not going to work. So, I was going through a lot when I was in college because I was just trying to figure all this out. And when it got to the point that I was buying, I saw my money dwindling
Hmm.
because I was trying to buy so many friendships.
Mm.
And at the end, I found I didn't really have to.
No, you didn't. How did you find that out?
So,
Patty, I'm assuming, is one example, but at the end,
right. But a lot of it was Patty because she noticed some of the stuff I was doing. And she was said, Veronica, she said, I really appreciate what y'all done for me so far. And
mhm,
I won't ever think about taking advantage of that.
good person.
Right. But what you're doing, these people are taking advantage of you and what you have.
That's a good friend. Honest,
She was
direct.
she the one that kind of made me open my eyes to what was going on.
Mhm,
But like I was telling her, I said, Patty, you just understand what I experienced as a kid.
mhm.
Only a certain group of people was accepting me, and I wanted to be accepted by everyone, not based on what I had, just for me.
Yes. Yeah. So now we're out of college. You're a young adult. I'm assuming you're on your own. What does life look like for you in terms of your environment and how you're showing up at this point in your life?
Okay, so when I had my son, and I think back on this, and I kind of get angry for it because at the end of the day, see, my son never knew what a project looked like
Okay.
either.
And to
So,
be clear for our listeners, housing projects, is that what you're referring to?
right.
Okay, finish your story.
So he never knew what that looked like. But I was so busy doing what my family did for me
Hmm.
to him, to the same thing I was looking for, he was looking for.
Whew,
Yep,
I know what you're saying is true.
yep,
You passed, and I know you did not do this knowingly or consciously. And we call those in certain communities generational curses or cycles where we just kind of repeat things that are not always healthy. And normally, this isn't the type of story that we're talking about that we're repeating. It's like other addictions or other behaviors. Yours, you end up essentially doing the same thing to him that happened to you that I'm sure you would have wanted to protect him from,
right,
but it happened anyway.
right. And that's the mere thing I was trying to protect him from. So I'm like, then I started to I said, should I let him see what the housing look like? Should I let him go to the housing area? Should I you know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
And but that's what he craved.
Hmm.
And when I look back on it, that's what I craved.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm still, I guess the part that you may never know, and even me trying to ask, I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is it or what was it within either that environment or those type of people that you were craving or that he was craving. I just, I'm not even confident that you know.
I don't know. At first, I thought because don't get me wrong, having a lot as a child, it was okay. I mean, I was happy. I'm not gonna say I was
Yeah, can we be
happy.
honest? Yeah.
I was happy, and I enjoyed everything my mom did. But when you on the outside looking in and you see something across the street and you be like, man, I wish I could be doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then when you go to do that and try to make friends, then in turn those friends know what you have, so they're not accepting of you.
So it's acceptance. And you pretty much had already touched on it. You said, I wanted to be accepted by everybody. That's real. That's real.
Mhm.
And this is always a safe zone, a no judgment zone, because I'm sure people are listening who can relate. And I'm sure there's people who can't relate to this specifically, but maybe for them, they want to be accepted with a certain group or they want to be accepted at work in a certain environment. But I definitely can relate to what you're saying. So when it boils down to it, it's just wanting to be accepted by everybody.
Everybody. It's just, and especially your own people.
Of course. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Right?
Like, why wouldn't you?
Because you said even your family treated you differently.
Right. Because, okay, so as a child, I can remember like Christmas time, my dad's sister, she wouldn't be able to do her kids' Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my dad would do our Christmas and their Christmas. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I hear you.
Right. So, and then they would tend to think, I don't know, they growing up, they always think when people say you try to be better than them, it wasn't, I was a kid. How could I be better than you?
Right. you're
I
you're
was a
not
kid.
even thinking about that. That's the furthest thing from your mind.
I'm a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I be better than somebody else? I'm
Mm-hmm.
just a kid, just like you.
Yes. So now that you're an adult and you're kind of navigating life on your own, and now you realize that at some point you were trying to buy friends, you were trying to be accepted, any means necessary. How old were you, if you don't mind sharing, when you came to the realization what you were doing and enough was enough?
That's embarrassing.
Oh, no, no. And you don't have to share your age specifically, but kind of give us a time frame, maybe once you got out of college, or are you there?
Oh no, I'm there now. At this point, whether you accept me or not, it don't even bother me no more. But let me see, when I graduated college, I went to Colorado. It wasn't until I was out in Colorado for almost 10 years. It wasn't until I moved to Kentucky.
All right, we're going to give a shout out to Kentucky because we both live in Louisville, not Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky. And so, what was different here? I'm wondering if the environment here, if it was something that you seen differently, had you had just grown into your own person and you're thinking, I'm just not tolerating this type of behavior out of me anymore. Help us to understand the transition from coming from Colorado to Kentucky.
Because once I got to Kentucky, I had made up my mind. I'm gonna stop letting people judge me for what I have, what I had, what my parents have. That's not me, and and I looked at it as though that's my parents' stuff. That's not mine.
But
My
even
parents
if it is your parents' stuff, you should still be able to be proud. But you're explaining, so I understand. But the emotional side of me kind of kicks in to defend, like, okay, even if your parents were well off, but was it something pivotal? I would like to think, how sometimes it's that one incident or something that happened that it was like the boiling point that like tipped you over. Was it somebody who really like took advantage of you? Was it did you feel misused at some point?
Oh, now, when I got to Kentucky, no. Okay, at first, mm, you know, I have no problem meeting people, nothing. It's just, you know how when somebody asks you, tell me a little bit about yourself, it was basic.
Mm,
For the longest, I kept it very basic,
okay.
very. You don't need to know a whole lot. You
Hmm.
know, I, and then somebody, girl, I'm struggling. I was always struggling. I don't care what it was,
So you would tell people you was always struggling?
always struggling.
You know I'm not gonna let you get away with that.
No, but you know what? Let me just say this. And I know I'm talking to you, and you're one of my good friends, and you're one of the people that I met. And I believe that's when I start telling you my story,
Mm-hmm. Because I'm curious.
and you saw no judgment in me. You
Mm,
accepted me for me. And I'm like, if this one person can do it, why do I need to hide my story?
I know that's right.
And that was many years ago.
Okay. And it
When
was.
I
It really
first
was.
met you, when I first met you, it was some years after I got to Kentucky too.
A
And
few
I
decades now for us. It's been
yeah.
it's been a while ago.
And then you was like, Veronica, where you from? What's your pay? You know what I mean? So I'm like,
Mhm.
and the whole time you were asking me questions, I'm like, should I be honest with this girl? You know what I mean?
Because I just keep drilling, don't I? I just keep
Right.
yeah.
And I'm like, should I be honest with her? I was a little timid. And then every time we talk, I would share a little bit.
Hmm.
Talk a little more, I would share a little more. And that's when I knew, okay, if I don't meet no other friend, it don't even matter.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep.
Well, as you're talking about it, and I'm thinking back, I just remember being proud of you. Like, I won't share the part of town that you live in, but when you tell me where you live, I remember when Charleston was in Boy Scouts and he was getting ready to get his eagle. And I do remember how much you spoiled him. And I just, and my background.
Right,
So, and I'm sure even before you read the book, you knew I came from a disadvantaged background.
right.
But what's sad is I can still relate to you. And this is why. So, how you got shamed when you were younger and growing up, and people looked at you like you thought you were better. I got that treatment because I chose better. So, when over the years, because I did come from, and I hate saying the word disadvantage because I by no means of the imagination feel like a victim or feel disadvantaged. But if you got to put a label on it, because I was poor growing up, or I didn't come from a two-parent home, or I didn't have like the material things, people who knew me and knew how I grew up and would see me as an adult would judge me because I moved to a certain part of town, or because I spoke a certain type of way, or because I carried myself a certain type of way. It's almost like they expected me to be less than. And it was like, you have the audacity. So I say that. I'm like, yes, I have the audacity to be me because I don't have to stay there. Because I was always seeing people like you, or seeing like I had role models. I had people that I aspired to be like. If it wasn't people that I knew in person, I watched television. I mean, you just don't know what you don't know. You know what you know. But if you want better, and I wanted a better life for me, a better life for my kids, and even overall for my family, I want us to build wealth. I want my kids to tell stories like you were able to tell about your parents. So I celebrate that. So no, I wasn't going to judge you for coming from a healthy family, a two-parent home, parents that were entrepreneurs, owned farms, were owning businesses. Like all that was very impressive to me. And so I can relate because although I kind of come from not much, and I still don't have much, to be honest with you. But people, I guess the perception, people would call me ghetto bougie, which is cool, like I am. It's all good. And that's really all good. And that's playful and it's not really harmful. But then there are people who would either try to remind you of your past and where you come from to try to keep you in your place, or they will try to exploit you. And I'm not having it either, Miss V.
And you know what? And come to think of it, and I'm getting ready to unmask.
Unmask. You're on
Okay.
board talk.
So I did leave one very important part of my life out, and I shouldn't, because I shouldn't be ashamed of this. I'm about to
Okay.
be in tears.
Hmm.
I was pregnant at 17.
That I didn't know.
At 17, because see, I didn't fully unmask.
Okay.
I was pregnant maybe at 16. And when my mom found out, I came out of school. I was homeschooled.
Hmm.
Homeschool. She sent me to Ellenhurst, Georgia.
Tell us
I,
about that because we're not familiar with that.
Ellenhurst, Georgia is where, oh, then it had been a whole nother thing where we had, I don't even want to go there with that, but my mom had what you call like, Reggie said, y'all had a maid when y'all was growing up.
Okay, it's all good. It's all good.
But it wasn't, we didn't consider her as a maid. We just saw her as Agnes.
Okay, so we'll call her Agnes.
So Agnes had a sister in Ellenhurst, Georgia. Okay.
Okay.
And when I found out I was pregnant, her, my mom, my dad, I came out of school. They sent me to Agnes' sister in Ellenhurst, Georgia. I was homeschooled,
Mm-hmm.
but I ended up carrying it full term, but it was stillborn.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh, I hate to hear that, Miss B.
it was stillborn. So by me being homeschooled,
Oh my goodness.
I went to college at the age of 17. So I didn't really graduate with my, I'm, I'm a mask.
Okay, you are good.
I
Mm.
did not graduate with my class. I came out during the summer. So
I
when I
can
went to
relate.
college in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
I was on restriction because I wasn't 18 yet.
Interesting. Did not know. Not that I needed to know. But when you want to share, and again, like I'm so grateful and just honored for my guests. Like I really love you all. I don't know what it is. You just unmask and really share. And we did not plan this. And I'm like, so many emotions are going on right now.
Yes.
And we'll talk after the podcast. Yeah. But no.
Yeah, because I wanted so much to fit in with them
Mm,
other
mm,
people.
mm.
You get what I'm saying? I don't know why I wanted it so much, but I did.
Yes. And it's
Mhm.
okay. You don't have to and not that you're apologizing, but I want you to know that it's okay that you are how you are, that you were who you were, because it built the character and the woman that we all know and love today. It's okay. Nobody has to, I mean, like you said, we're young, we're still trying to figure out life, we're trying to
Right.
figure out who we are, who we want to be. That's why it should always be no judgment. I get so frustrated with us as people, and I mean us, that we do judge one another and we're so opinionated. And, I open up this platform for people to share their stories, and I create a safe space. And I hope those listening are very compassionate and understanding. And when they hear these stories, this is why I always say we all have our little secrets.
Yeah.
We only unmask the parts we want people to see.
Exactly.
And you said it perfectly when you said, okay, I'm just getting ready to unmask. And I want you to know that that's okay. And that you had to get to the point maybe of even going back, sharing so much of your childhood that I wonder in some ways if that part you had buried.
I did. And I kept telling myself, Ronnie, you buried two kids, not one.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? But and that was eating me up because nobody knew.
hmm. Okay. All right. We're good. Everybody knows I'm emotional. So if you're listening, I'm sorry. I got to just get it together for a moment because I do know her personally, and she does have, well, she lost an adult child. So hearing that you had a stillborn, I'm just, I'm here for you. And
Yeah,
I know you're opening up a lot right now. Um, we just take a moment. You okay?
yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. But that was a relief. I mean, that was it was a relief.
Environment, who, I mean, and it does impact you. Like if people are honest with themselves, how you grow up, and just think about how much is repressed. Like the things that, I don't know, you have like memory blocks. Sometimes I do. Like there's things that I don't even remember. But I believe that the brain is brain is protecting me from certain trauma, that if I remembered certain things, I don't know if I would be able
And I
to.
guess when my mom and them did what they did, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to talk about this.
Mm. So they didn't really talk about it,
No,
and they didn't tell you you couldn't, but
talk
it,
about
it was kind of unspoken. You knew not to.
right, exactly.
Every family has secrets, right?
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I tell you what, I know in the interest of time, I can't keep you all day. And this was definitely a lot. I do want to ask just a couple of questions just to kind of bring the conversation to closure to
okay.
wrap up. And so the first question is, are you okay today
Yeah,
with
I'm
being who you are? Do
yes,
you feel a sense of belonging?
yes.
And so tell our listeners, why was it important for you to use the pillar environment to share your story?
Because I know it's not, but I think it was somewhat associated with my son
Mm.
because I knew what I was looking for
Hmm.
and I knew what he was looking for. And we was both looking for the same thing as kids.
Wow, that's deep. Well, we're definitely going to have you on the podcast again because I know the listeners who reach out to me, they're always like, "Oh, that could have lasted longer. Or that person could have talked more." And so I tell everyone, especially my very first interview, because that went by super quick. So I definitely got to have Coach K back on the podcast. But I do want you to come back again so that we can end things on a more positive note. I try to end things on a positive note, especially when it kind of goes deep like this. And so, do me a favor if you can really pull this out of you. On a positive note, how can we end this in terms of your story and other people that you know that may be struggling with this type of need of acceptance? What advice or encouragement would you give those people?
My advice is at the end of the day, just be you. It
Mhm.
is so better just to be you and just be happy with you. And I'm so glad I'm in a good place where I can say, I'm so happy to be me.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just happy, thankful, and grateful that I was even able to get to where I could be me and
Mhm.
not care what anyone else feel about me. It don't even matter anymore.
It doesn't even matter anymore.
Mm-mm.
Thank you so much for opening up and really sharing your story today. And you are leading out of authenticity. And I just want to encourage you to self care. I know you have a support group within us and as far as friends, but
Right,
I'm always a proponent of therapy. I'm always a proponent of faith,
right.
depending on your religion, just to draw strength from. But you are loved and you are genuinely cared for. So thank you.
Thank you.
Listeners, I want to thank you for joining in today. Authentic people, real stories. Rochelle Armstrong, leading authentically.